You're in the middle of a conversation that matters. You're trying to be heard. You're explaining something you've explained before, and the person across from you stops responding. Not angrily, not by walking out, just gone. They're still standing there. They're still in the room, but the eye contact is gone. The face has flattened. The voice, when it comes, is short, distant, almost mechanical. You ask if they're okay. They say yes, but the yes doesn't sound like the person you were talking to a minute ago. It sounds like someone behind a wall telling you they're fine through the wall. What you're watching has a name. It's called stonewalling. And what's happening inside the person on the other side of the wall is almost the opposite of what it looks like from where you're standing. Stonewalling gets misunderstood in a specific way. Most of the time, when people describe being stonewalled, they describe being punished. Someone is angry with them. Someone is giving them the silent treatment. Someone is deliberately withholding response to make them feel bad. That description fits some kinds of withdrawal, but it doesn't fit stonewalling. The two get conflated constantly, and the conflation makes both of them harder to understand. The silent treatment is deliberate. It's a strategy. The person doing it is conscious of what they're doing and why. They're using silence as a tool, but to express anger, to extract an apology, to inflict a specific cost. Stonewalling is not that. Stonewalling is what happens when someone's nervous system shuts down in the middle of a conflict. It's involuntary. It's not a strategy. It's a physiological event that the person experiencing it is, in some sense, trapped inside. To understand the difference, you have to understand what's happening in the body of the person who's gone quiet. And for that, you need the work of one researcher in particular. John Gottman is the most cited researcher on couples in modern psychology. For more than 4 decades, he and his collaborators studied couples in laboratory settings, wiring them with sensors during arguments, measuring heart rate, cortisol, skin conductance, breathing, recording every gesture, every silence, every micro-expression. What they wanted to know was whether they could predict, from observing a couple in conflict, which relationships would last and which ones wouldn't. They could, with over 90% accuracy in some studies. And the most reliable predictor of long-term relationship dissolution wasn't fighting. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even contempt. It was something Gottman called the 4 Horsemen, 4 communication patterns that, when they became habitual, signaled the relationship was in real trouble. 3 of them were verbal: criticism, defensiveness, contempt. The 4th was the absence of words, stonewalling. Of the 4, stonewalling turned out to be the most physiologically interesting. When Gottman's team measured the bodies of people who were stonewalling in mid-argument, they found something striking. The stonewallers' heart rate had often spiked above 100 beats per minute. Cortisol was elevated. The sympathetic nervous system was fully activated. The body was in a fight or flight state, but the person was just sitting there, not fighting, not running. From the outside, they looked withdrawn, cold, possibly bored. Inside, their body was in alarm. Gottman called this state flooding, a diffuse physiological arousal so intense that the brain can no longer engage in productive conversation. Working memory collapses. The capacity to take in what the other person is saying disappears. The face goes flat, not because the person doesn't care. The face goes flat because the parts of the brain that produce facial expression have been overwhelmed by the survival circuits underneath them. Stonewalling, in other words, is a freeze response. It's not the silent treatment. It's not punishment. It's the body of someone who has been pushed past the threshold of what their nervous system can handle, sitting still because every other option has been temporarily taken offline. Gottman's research found another pattern worth knowing. In heterosexual couples, stonewalling is heavily gendered. Roughly 85% of the time, the stonewaller is the man. This isn't because men are colder. It's because of how male and female nervous systems tend to recover from physiological arousal. In Gottman's studies, men flooded faster than women, took longer to come back to baseline, and experienced flooding as more aversive. Their bodies, on average, hit the threshold sooner and stayed past it longer. This explains a pattern that almost every long-term couple eventually recognizes. The argument escalates. She wants to talk it through. He goes quiet. She, sensing the disconnection, pushes harder. He goes quieter. She becomes more upset, not less. His withdrawal becomes more total. By the time the conversation has ended, neither person has gotten what they needed. She feels abandoned in the middle of something that mattered. He feels relief that the conversation is over, mixed with the slowly arriving recognition that nothing actually got resolved. Both of them often blame each other for what just happened. She thinks he doesn't care. He thinks she's too intense. Neither of them is right. What happened is that one of them flooded, and the other tried to repair the disconnection by reaching harder, which made the flooding worse, which made the disconnection more total. It's a feedback loop, and it's a particularly cruel one, because each person's instinct in the moment is exactly the wrong move for what's actually happening inside the other person. This is why stonewalling, when it becomes chronic, is so dangerous to relationships. It's not the silence itself that erodes the bond. It's that the silence is misread on both sides every time it happens. The stonewaller experiences themselves as trying to calm things down, to keep from saying something they'll regret, to manage an internal state that's too loud to talk through. The partner experiences the silence as rejection. Both interpretations feel real. Neither one is what's actually happening. There's another piece of this worth naming. Stonewalling becomes more likely the longer a relationship has been carrying unresolved conflict. Each fight that ends in flooding lowers the threshold for the next one. The nervous system learns that arguments lead to overwhelm. It starts flooding earlier, on smaller triggers. Eventually, the partner only has to raise the topic. They don't even have to raise their voice. And the other person's body is already preparing to shut down. This is why stonewalling, untreated, almost always gets worse over time. The wall, once it learns to comes up faster. It's tempting, when you've been on the receiving end of stonewalling, to read it as personal, as if the wall going up was aimed at you, as if your partner chose silence as a way to hurt you. In some cases, the deliberate silent treatment cases, that interpretation is correct. But in stonewalling proper, the kind Gottman documented, the wall isn't aimed at anything. The wall is what happens when the system can no longer process what's coming in. It's not a message. It's not a verdict on the relationship. It's a body trying to survive a moment it can't currently handle. The person behind the wall is not unreachable because they don't care. They're unreachable because the parts of them that could engage with you have been temporarily overwhelmed. In that state, no amount of pursuing makes things better. Pursuit, no matter how loving, registers in the flooded nervous system as more input, more stimulation, more of exactly what the system was trying to escape from. The harder you push toward connection, the further the wall has to retreat to maintain the freeze. The thing that actually helps, paradoxically, is space. Gottman's research found that the most effective response to flooding is a deliberate break. About 20 minutes of physical and cognitive distance from the conflict, long enough for the heart rate to come down, long enough for the stress hormones to clear, long enough for the nervous system to come back online. After that, the same conversation can often happen productively that was completely impossible 20 minutes earlier. Not because the issues changed, because the bodies changed. This isn't an instruction to put up with stonewalling forever. Chronic stonewalling, especially in combination with the other three horsemen, is one of the strongest predictors of relationship breakdown there is. If it's a permanent feature of a partnership, the partnership is in real trouble. But understanding what stonewalling actually is changes how you respond to it. It changes whether you take it as a personal attack. It changes what you say after. It changes whether you stay locked in the loop or whether you begin to step out of it. The wall is real, but it isn't aimed at you. The next time you're in a conversation with someone and you watch their face go flat, the eye contact dropping, the voice flattening, the answers getting shorter and more mechanical, you'll have a different picture of what's happening. You'll see the body, even if the body is sitting still. You'll know that the heart rate is up, that the cortisol is surging, that the parts of them that could be present with you have, for the next several minutes, been taken over by a much older system trying to keep them safe. You don't have to read the silence as rejection. You don't have to push harder to be heard. You can pause, step back, give the body the space it needs to come down, and come back to the conversation when both nervous systems are capable of having it. This won't fix everything. Some people stonewall as a chronic pattern of avoidance, regardless of whether the conflict warrants it. That's a deeper issue that a break alone won't address. But for most stonewalling, in most relationships, the simple act of recognizing what it actually is changes the dynamic. You stop chasing someone whose body has gone offline. They stop having to defend a wall against a pursuit that was making the wall more necessary. The loop loosens. The recovery, for both of you, becomes possible. The next video looks at one of the patterns underneath all of this, why so many of us find ourselves in the same kind of relationship, with the same kind of person again and again, why the people we keep ending up with are not random, and why the answer goes deeper than just bad luck. For now, just this. The wall going up across from you is not the punishment it looks like. It's a body, in alarm, trying to find its way back to baseline. The silence is real, but it's not aimed at you.